Sabrina 70s comic issue 9. We start out with Della bringing Priscilla to Sabrina's house to be a guest for a while. And she doesn't even seem to add variety because she's dressed just like Hilda. Her only variety is her old-fashioned way of speaking, because I guess she comes from a place where everyone talks like that. She's a retired witch from Salem, all the way back from 1692, and wants to make a comeback because she was bored. She wants to recapture the excitement of the old days of Salem witchcraft trials. Why would she want that? What actually happened in them is that women were called witches for not sleeping with the guy who wanted her, or sleeping with someone other than their husband. And weren't they hanged? Which means that the victims weren't necessarily witches. Della wants Hilda to show Priscilla the many changes that have come about. I thought the opposite would happen. I thought she was bringing her here specifically to try to influence Sabrina to be old-fashioned, because she's a good witch. And so, she stands out among all the other teenage witches. I guess Hilda's a personal friend of Della's, so she casually brought her to her. That only makes sense because Hilda's the main character. Because the way Hilda talks about witches, we're supposed to believe that a whole bunch of witches are acting like Hilda. So, she's nothing special. Della takes off, and Priscilla can't wait to put a hex on somebody's food crop. Of course the witch accusations happened with them acting like that. And yet Priscilla looks back on them as exciting. As long as the witch is conscious, it would be laughably easy for one to save themselves from mortals with just a point of the finger. Or even just making a wish. Maybe that's why she doesn't take the trials seriously and just thought they were fun. But didn't Hilda or Zelda talk as if the Salem trials were one of the worst things that happened to witches? Now there's someone who didn't take it seriously. So, huh? I don't understand why Priscilla is so behind in the times. Sabrina said she won't find many farms around here. Sabrina's told to take her out and show her around while she zaps stuff up. Sabrina needs to tell Priscilla what cars and airplanes are. That's not very interesting actually. She just asks what stuff is, and Sabrina tells her. Priscilla's startled by a police car siren, and to wonder if there'll be an actual plot and it'll actually go somewhere. Why didn't Priscilla insult Sabrina for showing so much of her skin if she's so old-fashioned? That's the first thing she'd notice. Priscilla hides from the car in a tree, calling it a monster, even though it's made of metal, so it's clearly a man-made invention, and even though Sabrina just told her what cars are. She's familiar with chariots. She just call it a horseless chariot. She zaps up a dragon while ignoring Sabrina, so that's dumb. Sabrina uses magic to save the cops, and explains to her that cops are the good guys. Did any kind of cops exist back in Salem? I'm sure they did. Or society couldn't have functioned. She just didn't know they were the police because she's never seen a police car before. She must have lived in an Amish-like community from the other realm for the last couple hundred years. Not literally Amish since she's a witch though. Just a village where witches could pretend things didn't change since the 1600s. The cops assume they both hallucinated from working too hard, and Sabrina tells her not to zap everything that scares her. Then Priscilla almost gets run over by someone on a motorcycle, who turns out to be cousin Sylvester. I thought it was retconned out of the comic and replaced with a similar substitute. Why didn't Hilda ever reference him when talking to the other hippie? I'm glad he's back though. Priscilla doesn't know what he means by the phrase, "laid on me." I've never heard it either. She's naturally confused by his weird slang, and he greets her as a member of the New Witch Movement. He says that if she's gonna swing with the New Witch Movement, she has to dress like it. Then he forcibly uses magic to give her a better outfit, which doesn't look good on her at all. She looks better the normal way because it's more of a dress, taking advantage of her being a female character. She actually looks like a man with long hair in the new clothes. Seriously, how stupid was Sylvester to do that? How to expect to endear himself to people that way, no matter how good the clothes look? I guess him wearing pink as a guy is him intentionally trying to be rebellious, and that's the entire point. I really didn't expect him to show up in this story. It makes sense that he would talk to the old-fashioned character, but I never thought he'd show up again. He says that he liked her new clothes after Sabrina reverts the changes. Sylvester says that Hilda is tacky. It was polite of him to apologize to her. The story ends with Priscilla being referenced to have gone back into retirement. What did Della think would happen? At least Stella was used as a character in a way that doesn't make me totally hate her. But it's so confusing that she wanted to make someone less old-fashioned. She didn't insult Sabrina for being good. In the comedy page, Sabrina gives Harvey some of her aunt's homemade chocolate pudding, which is lumpy because of Hilda's wristwatch that she somehow lost despite it being a wristwatch. It was nice of her to thank Harvey. In the next comedy page, Hilda said she's out of milk because of Harvey, and now she has no milk for coffee. Rather than simply zapping up milk herself, she tells Harvey to buy her some milk, probably to get back at him. I felt like chuckling a little when she said, "And hurry, I want you to run all the way." And Harvey said, "Run? But it's about 7 long blocks away." I giggled just picturing that. She then zaps up a dog to chase after him, and he proves he can run all that distance. In the next story, Hilda complains that there's no more candy in her jar. Sabrina says that Harvey had some candy while watching TV with her. Why is she smiling? She should know that Harvey's in deep trouble now. She sure is nice to Hilda to humor her by never erasing her memory of anything Harvey did wrong, to easily prevent her from getting revenge on him. Every time. Apparently, she thinks messing with the minds of mortals is just good, harmless fun, but doing so to her own aunt would be unforgivable. Hilda complains that she just put candy in the jar, and Sabrina defends Harvey, as Hilda calls him out on being selfish. She says he's a hog who should break out in a rash. I guess Sabrina was intimidated into telling her where Harvey was. Hilda sees them eating from the fridge. Sabrina stops her from turning him into a pig. Hilda says that you should never hex a spell in transaction, and that's the unwritten law of witches. Really? Even if it's a spell that has to be stopped? They have skewed priorities. Shouldn't Harvey hear what they're saying right in the next room? Why does he bother asking what all the commotion is about? You'd think he'd know they're witches by now, and simply not talk about that to avoid getting another spell of amnesia. He apologizes for eating the candy, and even asks for some more at a time like this. Really? Sabrina makes sure Harvey leaves, and he says this is a peculiar house when any house would have him in trouble for eating all of their candy. And he's used to Hilda dressing like this by now. It makes sense if he remarked this because he heard Hilda say she was going to turn him into a pig. Hilda wants to make herself a snack, and she can't get enough of the food from the fridge, picking out on it. She eats all the food, and somehow Sabrina doesn't know what's happened to her. Many pounds later. That's a pretty amusing line for a text box. You don't gain weight that much at once. There's only so much that the body can turn to fat at one time. Sabrina figures out that the spell meant for Harvey must have backfired. But how would that make sense? Hilda wasn't thinking about herself turning into a pig when she wanted to cast that spell. Wouldn't this not happen? It would actually make more sense if Sabrina made this happen to her on purpose, as a fitting punishment for wanting to turn Harvey into a pig. Because bullshit, Sabrina can't use magic to return her to normal right away, because the writer wants to pad out the story some more at the wrong part of it. Wouldn't it be really easy to just imagine Hilda as looking as she did before? She could look at a photo. Sabrina looks it up in the witch's manual, which explains that if you hex a spell with another spell, it could result in side effects on the spellee or speller. I'm willing to bet that this contradicts a previous issue, and later issues. Not to mention issues in the 90s comic. This doesn't make any sense. The only way to cure the side effect is with a specific potion. Okay then, whatever. I guess if I'm willing to believe in a magical artifact that can only do one specific spell in any other franchise, like a fire rod in Zelda, it should make just as much sense that specific potion ingredients would combine to make one specific magical result. It's like combining letters and numbers together to make a specific line of code. Hilda's given the potion and gets a stomach ache instead of returning to normal instantly. And all that happens is that she loses her appetite. Harvey shows up and brings her a box of candies, and she throws it at his head, when he was just trying to make up for eating her candy. I don't understand why she didn't return to her normal weight right away. The only reason she was able to fatten up so much in just a few minutes was because of magic. She didn't just get a big appetite. Wouldn't she completely return to normal if the spell was really reversed? Oh yeah, why did Harvey think this was Hilda when she's much fatter than he's used to and he doesn't know she's a witch? In the next story, Hilda uses magic to make someone slip. Some narration happens as we see a clip of Sabrina using magic to prevent a baseball from hitting Archie, and using magic to prevent rain from falling on Betty. Hilda uses magic to send a hat off someone. Hilda saw Sabrina use magic to do good, and Hilda tells Ambrose what she did, inexplicably mad at her. She says that they could all be drummed out of the witch's coven, as Sabrina naturally softens to a pillow. If that was a possibility, that would have happened a long time ago, and she should know that. Ambrose tells her to calm down, because nobody but her saw her. Wait, what makes him think that? Won't all witches know about spy witches? Dell said she was able to watch Sabrina on TV. Why was another plot with this premise made? I'd rather they just keep it to Sabrina helping people. With an actual plot, of course. It would be boring if it was literally just that. Ambrose tells Hilda to run along and do her shopping. Why doesn't Hilda just zap things up? Ambrose tells Sabrina not to take her scolding too seriously because she speaks in forked tongue. Huh? He says that she's old enough to be let in on her secret vice, and tells her to follow her in the crystal ball. See, if Della was explained to have seen Sabrina in a crystal ball instead of on TV, it makes sense right away. They see Hilda furious in the supermarket. She only indulges in her vice when she thinks she's not observed. She gets bumped by somebody's grocery cart, and laughs when she makes them get crushed by falling cans. But because she's in a good mood, she uses magic to put a bunch of dimes in a kid's broken baseball bat. So now the kids can buy a couple of them. Then she uses magic to zap up a fish for a stray cat. This is out of character at this point. It seems to be one of the writers trying to make up for and apologizing for how she's been portrayed, like it's an author-saving throw. It's too late at this point. It makes her look like a frustrating hypocrite for always bullying Sabrina for doing good with her magic and saying she's a failure of a witch when she does the exact same thing. It makes sense that she doesn't want her family punished, but then that should have been all she ever complained about. She shouldn't have been talking like Sabrina was a failure for being herself and making her cry and never apologizing for it. This kind of thing better happen in more than one issue. This thing better be a trend. Or it's just gonna feel like a half-ass, out-of-character author-saving throw for someone who's almost been pure evil. We always saw her when she was mad. All this does is make me wish she did this more often. She zaps up a puppy for a lonely kid, and Ambrose tells Sabrina to keep this a secret. It kinda makes sense that she's not pure evil and kind of a phony, because if she was pure evil, she wouldn't have a soft spot for Sabrina. So she wouldn't have taken her back home after kicking her out that one time. We never even see her ground Sabrina. As mad as she gets at her, I can't remember ever punishing her. Ambrose explains that Hilda's proud of her reputation as the perfect witch, but when she zaps someone who really deserves it, she feels so good that she has to share her joy with someone. So we see her zap up a bunch of money for a homeless man. I guess she only does this when her family isn't around. So that's why we haven't seen her do this. Someone painting the house drops paint on Hilda and apologizes. Hilda makes someone outside the house get humiliated with paint over his head. In the most heartwarming panel ever, Sabrina says she truly loves her and gives her a hug, saying that she approves of her and is her kind of aunt. And Hilda misinterprets her because of what she just did. Fortunately, the story didn't end with Sabrina stupidly revealing that she knows her secret, like I expected. The first story is about Dell of all people trying to get a witch to become less old-fashioned, which is the opposite of what I expected. Or I guess she just literally wants to tell her what's changed. I'm glad she didn't try to be a bad influence on Sabrina again, but why use this character for this? Of course it doesn't work. She's scared back into retirement. I was surprised and disappointed that Sylvester didn't tell her that new witches are nice to mortals, and instead just left it at the fashion. They should have used his idiot replacement instead then. Well, it was an interesting idea, the plot, showing how an ancient witch from Salem would react to the modern world. Of course she'd be scared of cars. The second story is about Hilda trying to turn Harvey into a pig for eating her food, when she could just zap up food to replace it. And somehow, when Sabrina stops her from casting the spell, she ends up pigging out and fattening up as a side effect, when she didn't imagine that to happen. It would have made sense if Sabrina did this on purpose, to punish her, but instead, it's established that this is because she stopped her spell. I bet this contradicts something, because this is so stupid it's forgettable. And somehow she needs the magic book to make a potion to stop this, because padding. The 90s comic style. At least it was kind of amusing karma to see Hilda pigging out. I loved that many pounds later line. The final story is like a self-aware apology by one of the writers for how Hilda's been portrayed, humanizing her as someone who shares her joy by using magic to help people when Sabrina's family isn't around. Won't Stella be yelling at her for this though? Why is Sabrina the only one demonized for this? Wouldn't Hilda be caught too? Every witch is spied on. And Sabrina's abused magic before too, it's just really hard to remember in this comic. I guess Stella's nice enough to not be mad at Hilda for this, because she still abuses magic enough for her. It's explained that Hilda's hiding this because she's proud of her reputation. And while it was satisfying to see her be nice to people, I was still angry because it makes her mistreating Sabrina even more frustrating, as now she's a giant hypocrite. She never did apologize for making her cry over something that she does herself. Why is it okay for her to be nice, but when Sabrina does it, it's disgraceful? Nothing is forcing her to yell at her. If there was ever a chance of them being drummed out of the Witches' Coven, they would have been a long time ago. I guess right now it's just a general term for the Witches' Alliance or something. This better not be the only issue, or one of only a few issues, where she does good things with her powers for someone not related to her. Because one measly issue isn't nearly enough to make up for things. It just seems like an out-of-character moment. With the whole point of the story being that the writer's demonstrating this was actually a part of her character all along. I take a positive aspect that's hidden over a negative aspect, though. I always knew she had a soft side, but still. What helped to make more sense was that everyone she helped was either a kid or a homeless person who would be down on his luck. And this helps explain where Sabrina got it from.